Welcome.
Thank you.
To the 10th Community Board meeting, 30th of June 2021. And so, in terms of the meeting, we'd like to start here. And so we're going to deliver this for us. And the special cake here that's been given to us from Council Lottie Numley. So we enjoy this aspect of it.
You too. Ina tūru o mātawatua, o te rangi o te tumenga. Hei ana kina I a mātou I ngā kahui I whiriwhiringa I tēnei wā. I raro ana I te aro a rangi ki runga a whakatu luku I tātou nei. Whakamaua ki a tina, hange trai ki.
Next. So, that's the meeting proper. Everyone's present. Awesome. Public forum. Ruth, if you'd like to come forward, you're most welcome. I noticed there's some amendments to the forum that we'd like to note as well, but we'll do that after.
That was my my main reason for coming, was because there were several things that I brought up in the minutes, the first draft that was put out, and I thank you, Ariana, for listening and doing the amendments on that. The other little thing that I'd just like to bring up is that with the cyclist one, it really would be worth your while looking in there in the road code, just what it says about that cyclists, and I am bringing it up, but just saying on page 240, it is, don't ride your cycle on a footpath unless you're delivering newspapers, mail or leaflets and there is a sign indicating it is a shared pedestrian and cycle. Note the word pedestrian and cycle path. So therefore the path has to be wide enough for the two to do it. And I had been told, and I've got the photos to show you, I'd been told that the seawall was not actually a cycleway, that cycles are not meant to be on there, and the signs are still up there as of this morning. On the south end, it says share with care and dogs on leads. Well, neither of those are done. And on the north end of the Coronary Bay is the same signage. So the manager that told me that, unfortunately, he was misinformed on that one. But the main other thing that I came is a positive. I strongly ask you to go and have a really good look at the murals that Rick Fisher and Kylie Gunn have done. I took my 96-year-old to do it. Oh, well, she wanted to go to the bank, so we had a look at the murals that Rick had done. We did a walk and looked at the end, and it's studied how it goes around and continues right around. It's a story on three sides. But then we came back another day when there was no traffic, there was nobody around, and sat for over half an hour looking at Kylie's one, and it tells such a story because it includes, which is lovely, it includes the people coming to Thames, the Europeans coming here to gold mine and the sailing ships and things like that. So full compliment on her design on it, and it tells a lovely full picture of Thames's history, not just part of that history, but the full history of it. So compliments on that. Thank you. And I look forward to hearing how the rest of the meeting goes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth. And on other side of amendments, we need to wrap up.
We will at 1.5. Well, that is the contract.
Item not on the agenda. Thanks a lot. Items not on the agenda. Any items? Good. Conflict of interest. Anyone say interest? Any items on the agenda?
So under the grant funding, option 3 talks about board hire for attendees and drama production. I'm the vice president of that group, so I suspect I'll probably shouldn't talk about it. Only to say that the Peter Pan medallion season starts on the 3rd of July and the 10th of July. Go to thamesmad.co for tickets. Selling fast.
Selling fast?
Not as fast. Well, yeah. Selling fast.
Get on the site, go to London.
I shall leave the room when that's being discussed.
Suppose the person did it. Very good.
Yes, we've had that discussion, so it's probably a good idea there.
Right. Okay, thanks, Martha. Minutes for confirmation. There is an
Yeah,
amendment.
through the chair, I had taken some amendments and
Got a copy of those amendments and take the routes public selection.
So I'll move the minute, those,
Amendments. Right, thanks, Sally. Second, thanks, Peter. All good? Now we're at the last one. So on to 2.1. 2.1 is about our reallocation of grant funding. It's been board 2021 junior grants. That's it.
Task really.
Thanks, Don. Getting us through that.
Morning, members. As Strat mentioned, the purpose of this report is the reallocation of grant funding. I thought I'd just start by reviewing the purpose of the fund. So the purpose of the fund is to encourage and support community services, activities and events, support not-for-profit groups that have a positive impact on the community, and recognise, support and enhance the volunteer effort and community diversity and aspirations. And that's from the Council's grant policy. So today we have 4 options for consideration. Option 1 is the Thames Rugby and Sports Club request for funding for signs. So they've got their 150-year celebration coming up in August. They'd like to put up some sign or get some signs made. Option 2 is a contribution towards road closure for the Thames Santa Parade in December. Option 3 today is a contribution towards the hall hire for the production, which is coming up, and that's the Thames Music and Drama Society production. And finally, option 4 is the Experienced Marine Reserves program, which would be delivered to children from a local school. Now, I've provided in the report an assessment for each option, and the recommended option today is option 2, a contribution towards the road closure for the Thames Santa Parade.
So Rose, when you say a contribution, what's that contribution for?
For the Santa Parade?
Yeah, but
So
what in
that-
particular?
So the parade requires road closure of the main road, and then also the road that the groups gather on
Right.
before the start.
Okay.
And so the total cost is $2,000. So this is the contribution towards it, and then the business association would contribute the rest.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak in favour of that in terms of being made for sort of a kind of proactive measure to take the issue that's been road closure, and it's probably not the end of what we've already just looked at in terms of other events as well. Just haven't not been paid for some of those in terms of road closure and safety requirements.
I'm a little bit concerned that we are now changing our position on the grant. And the reason why is that during the process of grant funding last year. We agree that we would not look at applications that are outside the education process. So therefore, I would say that only 2 applications will be considered as optional. Because the other 2 will not amend.
Yeah, so this isn't a contestable process. The contestable process happened back in August. This is a process whereby one of the recipients didn't spend all the funding and has returned 1,300. So we've reconsidered the applications that weren't supported back in August, and then some other.
Because we said we weren't going to consider those that came in after the closing date of grant on future grant funding. And there were 3 or 4.
So we looked at,
I think it's unwise. I think if that kind of stuff goes out, but we're not making the way. We're not standing on what we've said we're going to be doing.
okay.
Didn't all of these qualify?
So 2 of them were part of that original round, and then the others were ones that came up later. Yeah.
Well, not during that process and not even the application, not even the control. Those applications that delivered after the closing date, these are absolutely new.
Yep. Point made.
So I'm totally through in this. I think that we did make it for late applications. Firstly, and just I'm reiterating what Cherise said, and in my opinion, for my knowledge, the only option is there's really the only option. No, the second point is we didn't need to go out and advertise to the community, hey, that we've got this extra money, who wants to have a grant at it. The ones that came in, people, I certainly know the Thames Business Association became aware that there was some funding coming back into the grants and that prompted that. So I think from a process point of view, it lacks integrity and transparency. And so I would advocate that unless we're able to add the money into the grants coming up in July, which I think would be a great solution, to add $1,300 so that then it's all contestable. It just goes back into the consolidated fund or whatever happens to know that it's not allocated.
Anyone else? Anyone?
I think Sally's good.
My view is that we're talking about $1,300, and I know we're talking about principles, but I think where Rose was looking from was that this was an entirely new process. We'd signed off that process, and we didn't say to people, I could equally argue if I wanted to, that we hadn't told people that if someone didn't spend it, we would relook at those same things. So people are assuming that as much as anyone else is assuming that this is free money. So, at $1,300, we're probably spending $1,300 right now looking around at who we're with. So we make a decision. My experience, if it goes back into the consolidated fund, it will not be added to our money, and we've made it lose it. So that will be the decision of the board.
Yeah. I do recall we looked at previous applicants, and one of them Stratton and I talked about, which was the sculpture group, and they had already received 3 grants of over $10,000 in previous years. But I do take your point that perhaps we could have gone back to those again.
So I also thought in that sculpture group were they distance with that was one of the reasons.
We did talk about that.
Yeah. It wasn't aware of the important.
Yeah, this is outside that contestable situation.
Because we're considering the $10,000 in returns,
Well, it's actually 1,300 that was returned.
And then half to option one and half to option four, and then it's done. That's what you say, so $1,500.
Well, I don't think either of those are the
But they are, that's the application.
And what I'm saying is that this was a different process. So,
I have with it, there were a lot of, well, but there were lots of people who could get money. We also didn't fund the SCCA, it didn't fund operation cover. Yeah. So during.
Well, they didn't get what we needed.
Well, exactly.
this is a different process.
No, that they were part of the same process, they also didn't get funding.
This is the different.
Yes, so, yeah.
So in terms of the correctness of this, is it a different process? Is it a process that all of those applications relating to the return of funding or was it the case of only one or being able to consider the process?
So the contestable process included some applicants that didn't receive grants and some applicants that were late. So we looked at everything. We looked at the late ones and there was the one that we spoke about, and I think there were two others. And then the applicants where their applications were on time, however, they didn't receive grants. Yeah, and so those two, we contacted them and said, are you still interested? Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, we have a suggested resolution 1 and 2. So have I moved up or
I'll move it. I think the centre parade, it's just a lot of community things, whereas the other one, directly cover the other stones.
you want a second?
I'll second it so that we can test the,
Sure.
score.
And those in favour of the resolution? Let's just keep this, so that's about 3 of us. Yeah, must have failed. So if everyone else got a resolution, that's fine.
I'd like to see option 1 and 4 get to the bench. You've been contact made with them.
So have we got a second resolution? So there's no second resolution. Okay. So that fails as well. So, well, the other option relating to resolutions is what I said, suggesting. Has anyone got a resolution they'd like to report?
Well, my suggestion would be, as I said before, that the money gets carried over to next year's grant. And people tell me, oh, they can't be done, but it's just going to be silly looking back. So that would
People on the
be
back row check if they're handicap.
Yeah, it has to be resolved. So there needs to be a resolution. Today's the last day of the financial year. Otherwise, it can't be carried over. That's my understanding.
So if we resolve to carry it over.
So if we resolve to carry it over.
It's grant funding, so
$1,500, can we?
yeah.
$1,500 over? And
Through the chair, I don't believe that it's set up to allow that,
We can check.
So I'm going to try and find someone to fight to get their compassion down. It's dollars left, you've got processes, I always do that, yeah.
so I'd like to pass a resolution that we, that if it is possible, funds be carried over to grant applications starting in July 2021.
So in that case, that is $6,000. It is personally, at the end of the day, you're saying that that's the outstanding application funding and hold $6,000 carried over to next year's grants.
1,300.
Yes.
The third is 13.
And 1,500.
Yeah.
And Robin, did you suggest it?
I did.
So we have a resolution that says, asking by.
Bruce is just going to put on it. Be able to come about that.
Okay, so we'll leave item 2.1, item B.
Yeah, so my understanding is that, Bruce will confirm, but is that if it's not allocated, then it can't be carried over. If it is allocated, it can be carried over. And you'll recall that at the last meeting, you resolved to carry over funds for the cricket club and another group, and they hadn't yet used their grants, and so that was fine.
And by virtue of the fact that they have made applications to allocated. It's really what the commission. Oh, well, we'll leave that in abeyance for the time being and we'll move on to the next item.
I'll go get Mark back.
Get
Okay, thank you.
Morning.
Roads, you know, they're doing this different because a lot of them, you know, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think with the resistance with the case.
Morning.
Morning.
The report is as read. Any questions?
Are there any questions arising from the NZ field development that's been taken as being next? We are certainly made some progress. Nothing, Peter? No.
In fact, I'd like to move the resolution that says outlined there. Just by way of background, Andrew and Larissa have met with the Thames councillors, separately, and brief them matters around the airfield. We've just come from a meeting with the chief executive, who is absolutely on the same page with regards to all these matters. And I'm confident that we'll have the right foundation for successful development of the airfield. So therefore, I move these resolutions as outlined by the would love somebody to sit in there.
Thanks, Peter. Those in favour? Aye.
Thank you.
Oh,
Well done, guys.
yeah.
I'll just say very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An outstanding result. And you can see the level of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, for all of your input. I would just like to note that. Yeah. Hello.
Good morning. I'm good, thank you.
Yes. Right.
Oh, it's the Pony Club's final right renewal that we're approving here today. They have not breached any of their lease conditions, and therefore I'm recommending that that their lease renewal be granted for their final term. here for the next item as well. Which also my manager, John Muston, is also here to assist if there are any questions. Yes.
As I understand this, this is going to get rid of some power lines.
That's correct.
It has to be a good thing, doesn't
At least like over power lines.
Can I just ask, is it, your practice, power code pays the fee and the property owner pay, is that just our normal practice? That's not unusual, is it?
I will defer that question to John.
Yeah. No, through you, Mr. Chairman, no, it's not unusual, but of course, people like the power code don't want to pay anything either. But it's the benefit of it is the subdivider, the owner own, and the power code as part of that subdivision needs to upgrade the power supply. So to protect their supply to the properties, they require an easement. So I think just to add, Mr. Chairman, in this case, it's more than probable that the power supply is going.
Excuse me, John. Can you just bring your mouthpiece down? We're having trouble receiving.
Okay, so it falls off my. Yeah, the recommendation is it stands, but
No, that's worse, John.
I think we're having.
It's not unusual.
Right. So we've got to move on.
And this, I had one other question is that with the installation of this power line on Council Reserve land there for this subdivision, does that help any further subdivision further up the road, in the future? In other words, if in fact there was some future opportunity relating to subdivision in Sawmill Road, is this contiguous to providing a power line to those areas if we open up with some future prospective subdivision in Sawmill Road? Would assist?
I will say that it isn't going to assist any further subdivision up the road. It's more specific to this small subdivision that they're creating at this time. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, but that said, PowerCo is responsible for as the lines come for the power supply to the whole of the area. It's in their interest to ensure that whatever works they do caters for current and future needs at the same times. It may be that if you like, the size of the pipe stops in Sawmill Road, but it will go to that point.
Right, okay, thanks, John. All right, we have moving sector. Any further questions, Mark?
No, I've moved it. I'm happy to. If you moved on, I've moved. Okay, I'll see.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those in favour?
Aye.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just go back to. You're right, Citizenship. Yeah, that's.
Offer a grant.
There was part of the grant, $6,000 was returned to us, sold.
Right.
Yes, no, $6,000 originally. And then there were 4 applications for the reallocation of that funding, of which we wanted $30 to one of those. We've been told that that application is outside of the grant requirement period. In other words, it was late. So really what we're really saying is that we would like to carry forward that $1,300 to that application period to next year.
Can't carry forward we can't carry forward OPEX money. It doesn't work like that. Like what happens with OPEX is because it's rate funded money, it at the end of the year when finance do their wash up for unders and overs, so any underspent budgets go into retained earnings. So the Thames, anything from Thames will go into the Thames retained earnings. And then any overspend there has been in that year from Thames gets funded from that. So that's, and like, there's about 1,000 lines and things going like that. For $1,300, I'm not going to ask my finance team to try and ring fence that. It's just not going to work. The other thing is that you've got to look at too that it's not just about the grant. It's like the whole Thames, the whole Thames budget. If there's some lines that you have in there that have already been overspent this year, the money would be better directed to offset that. I guess the other option that you could do, which I don't know how that would work, is that you could allocate it within this financial year, but that's a bit difficult when it's the last day today.
Well, that's what the report was about. We had a report of options and the board is not satisfied that that actually is the situation. So we're at a stalemate.
Mm.
And is it true to say that it was only a suggestion of the people who are giving the money back about it being reallocated? Or will we kick that off?
Sorry. For me, if you've got $1,300 of rates money that people that haven't been allocated, so we either distribute it, but at this point in time as a board, we can't find a way of agreeing with that process, or we put it back into consolidated and it all gets washed up.
It still goes back into the Thames, so it still will be funding the Thames local budget. So anything that the Thames ratepayer have paid for, it will still be going back towards funding that. It's not going to go back into a big pool of district money.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you happy to amend your resolution?
Yeah.
I'm just happy to still see
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So we amend the resolution which says that money go back to the consolidated. Yeah.
Him.
I have a mover and something.
We're just.
It's the original. Yes, just.
Can we have some wording to that, please, so we know exactly what we're.
I've got retains the 1,300 community grants fund into the Thames consolidated fund.
Thames consolidated retained earnings.
Can I just see some clarification? So the original amount was $6,000. That's been returned to me. Yes. That would $6,000 then.
I don't believe that. Well, I'm not sure what's been returned, but I just heard that 1,300 had been returned.
Of the $6,000 grant that was given to Solomon, they had already spent 4,700 on activities related to the one that was so it's only 1,300.
Sure, that's fine. That just goes back into retained earnings, and that's offsets rates. That's what sets you. One mover and second, those in favour? Aye. Okay.
And Cheryl.
Sorry about that confusion, that's more confusion.
It's all right, we're half an hour ahead of morning tea.
Yeah, well. 5.1, proposed road name, private right of way 48, Logan Road. They said one, James. Hi, Bruce. it's right.
Morning, good, how are you? Yes, so this is should be a fairly straightforward report, just a road naming report that we have when developments are done, so I'm happy to take any questions on this one.
Is there any questions?
So is there any need, or is it appropriate to consult with iwi around the naming?
So through the chair, there's no requirement in any of our documentation that people have to consult with iwi. That often does happen. But again, it's something that we need to look at as far as our development engineering code of practice, which is what we have. So we have the standards that we say to developers and people that are doing subdivisions, this is what you must comply with. There's stuff about, thickness of pavements and all that stuff. But I think also there's some stuff in there about road naming, and I think we need to look at reviewing our road naming policy in that document around consulting with local iwi. So that's not currently in there. So at the moment, there's no requirement. So we're in the situation where some people who are doing developments will consult with the local iwi about it, and some people don't. So there's nothing that we have that says they have to. So that's kind of where it sits at the moment.
Thanks, Bruce. Take that advice. Anybody else that is arousing from this? No.
Happy to move.
Okay, just move. Thanks, Rob. Second. The second. I'll take it. Second. Okay.
I don't know what's wrong with Bella Vista.
I personally think there's enough Bella Vistas in the world.
Connotation.
Thank you, Bruce.
No problem. I'll just stay here.
5.2, Orange Street, application. Thanks, Ed. You make this being read, or would you like to just anyway?
First of all, good morning. Main points are listed in the summary. We've examined the Victoria Street as requested by the Community Board, come up with prices for potential works along there and provided options for the board to consider together with recommendations from staff. At the moment, there is no funding available for any major works along that route, but we can undertake minor works such as signing improvements and checking on things such as vehicle numbers to see if we can justify future spending which would have to come through the next round through the annual plan submission.
That would be local spending.
It would, my estimate is it would have to be local spending because we would not be able to justify, if you like, district-wide spending with the anticipated vehicle numbers that we see there.
Right. Okay. So no chance of district funding to justify vehicle numbers.
I would say there is always a chance, but I would say that it is very unlikely.
Any points of clarification?
Yeah, I just had one, probably relatively minor, just around that, the amount of traffic. there was comments made that people coming from Auckland who go tramping up in the Coromandel Valley, if they're coming later in the day, we tend to go up Victoria Street because it cuts a couple of hours off the walking time from them starting to walk in a different place. So that wouldn't necessarily be reflected in the dock visit numbers because the number of people would be the same. It's just that they've come onto the track from a different place. We had that comment from the Paloma Tramping Club about how they felt anecdotally that there was more traffic on that road, but potentially it's a reasonably minor increase in traffic.
I've been out on site twice, and whilst I can't comment on the actual traffic figures, I have done 2 visual counts of traffic using the route. Even if there was something like a 100% increase in usage, it still wouldn't be sufficient to justify works.
Well, there are also 2 car parks, one at the bottom of Rocky's Walk and one at the bottom of Tonga's Valley. So they're not the same. It's West Swimming Hole. That's not the same parking that we use multiple word.
So what's the likely budget that we would need in an annual plan?
If it does depend on the anticipated works, we've provided rough, and I would say plus or minus 10 to 15% estimates. So if you were to reseal or seal the road, it would be approximately $280,000. Signing is fairly minor. The site benching of the first corner, we estimate roughly $60,000, but there are concerns about the stability of the rock slope there, and that may require additional costs. Again, signing is minor costs. Parking areas would be about $2,500 per space. So if you're putting in 10 spaces, you would budget for roughly $25,000. All in all, you could be talking 280, $500,000 to do the work that had been requested.
Can
I ask a question? In the resolution, request staff to undertake the following work, they all make sense. Is that got budget implications, or would you be able to do that work within your working plan?
We would be able to do that within our working plan. So the intention would be for any signing improvements to be undertaken under the operational signing budget. That would be minor costs. The traffic count, we have a traffic count program that we undertake every year. So it's just a case of allocating a count to that location for 2 weeks.
Because it strikes me that if we go with this resolution, then that basic work would be done, and then you get the information for the next annual plan to prioritise or not, depending on what we're doing. So it makes sense to me.
I'll see.
Any more discussion around the table? We heard a second for that option of doing preliminary work. What's that through? Okay. Yes. Thank you.
A comment. I just want to acknowledge, just like you acknowledge those around who were before, that came up in public forum, and your attention to it and your attention to detail is really impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Because often people bring things up that are really important to them and they get lost. And you picked this up and run with it. So I really want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate at this point to let the people in the public forum know how that's progressing, or we do that once we get further? I know we don't about feedback, but that those people.
I can answer the question, but.
Yeah, good idea.
What's the mechanism?
No, Heather Till and Joanne Richards.
Oh.
Yeah, it's through the chair. It's easy enough. Just send an email, to Ed, send an email saying that we're doing some work in this space. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously you have to be careful not to raise expectations, but I think, as long as it's written in the right way, keeps them up to date with what's going on, about what they've spoken about. So, yeah, we can do that. Easy.
Very good, thank you. 5.3 Thames Community Board work program.
Yes, so good morning. So last one of the financial year. There's a few things that we'll need to go across into the next financial year, which we've noted through our carry forward process for good reasons. And the majority of all the other work is either complete or very close to being complete. So happy to take any questions on that.
Is there any difference between dark blue and light blue?
No, that's an error by different sighted people who are inputting into the spreadsheet. And yeah, don't you worry, I spotted that this morning and was quite perturbed. Yeah.
So I know that the work's happening there. It's set to completion date today.
At the end of June, that was the expected completion date. So this report's at 31 June. So we have quite a lag, as far as getting information through for the meetings and making sure they get stuff through, a few weeks ahead. So
31 June.
30 June.
Midnight.
Yeah. So 31 May, sorry. Yeah. So at the top of it, we've got is at 31 May. So 31 May is what these comments are for. So at that point in time, they anticipated they'd get it all done by 30 June. So if we don't quite achieve that and we slide over the end of that, I wouldn't like to think it'd be too far over the end of it. So I think it's pretty close.
I was just wondering, 14 South Water. This will be, whether at some workshop at some stage, and pretty framed, so that we can understand the issues and the proposed work.
Yes, I think.
Because I couldn't go out to a meeting and totally approve right now.
Articulate it.
Do myself proud.
I think we booked that in already, haven't we, is it August?
Cool.
Can't remember. So we did. Yeah, so we did pick up on those comments, which are all fair, that we haven't talked about it for quite a long time. So no, that's a good point. So yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you, Marine Bruce. The fast tracking that on target in terms of national.
I would say it's not on target at this stage. So there's been some recent developments in the last week or so that I think they're just going to take a little bit more time to go through. And not to see Lorna's left the room. She would have probably been able to give you a better update on that. But there are some consenting issues that they're trying to work through the team with the regional council. So yeah, we're just working through those issues at this stage.
Right. And I did
how long is a piece of string? Hard to say. Yeah, it is a bit of a challenge, and they've really just got to do quite a bit of work to get through this process as far as just where the regional council, the requirements that they're looking at might be required on the project. Yeah, so it is quite significant, but I don't have all the details, so Lorna would be able to provide a bit more information on that. But I anticipate that as soon as we get a bit more clarity over that, we'll be able to provide an update for elected members.
So that doesn't relate to climate change.
No, I think it's not. I don't believe it's climate change issues. I believe it's local environmental issues down at that site. So there's a number of features down there that they want to, be very careful about. And so there's just how you work that through. There's lots of government guidance and requirements around significant natural areas and all those kinds of policies and statements. So
Yeah.
I think with the new national policy statement out about the tiny strip of land.
Yeah.
It's such an important project.
It is, yeah.
Area and
Yeah.
it's not unnecessarily built up, and we can help it.
Agree, yeah.
Any other matters arising?
Street toilets not cool.
The what, sorry?
Street
Yeah.
toilets.
Yeah, they get going. Yeah, exactly. And they go fast, once they start doing those projects, with the way they do them now, with those providers where they just bring the toilet units in, you know what I mean? And then they have the facades and everything. It's same as over at Pepe in Taurua, they happen very fast as well. So yeah, which is nice because we kind of keep waiting, and I keep telling the board, all the boards, yeah, it's coming, and and then suddenly it's there done. So yeah, it does look good. Thank you.
I think that we should have an opening, yes. I think celebrations are really important, and it is a core service that people really appreciate. So I think we should be making a part of the.
Yeah, I think the intention is to do an opening. Yeah, so I'll check with Ross and the project manager and make sure that he's got that scheduled and we can get the right people like yourselves along to that. So.
So when it's appropriate, could we get a briefing on that?
Yeah, I'll talk. Yeah, I'll talk to Lorna and make sure that once we get, when the time is right to provide as much information as possible, we do that. So yeah, we'll make a note of that.
But thanks. Any other matters arising?
Can we get, does the next report just have all red down the right hand side?
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
All be green.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully they'll be green, but sometimes things do crop up in the first couple of days of the new financial year that might seem as a bit of a skew, but yeah, hopefully they'll be all green to start with. Yeah. No problem.
Hang on, drive. I'm moving sector. Second. Thanks. Well, right. I'll do the members report 6.2. Point 1. Okay, that's being written, so
Any questions you may have?
no,
Will the action schedule now reflect the amended minutes? There was a request to that. Thank you.
So, any questions or queries related to the action schedule? Seems pretty straightforward, everybody? Yeah. Thames water, we're going to have a briefing.
Yeah, it's been going for years. Yeah. Yeah, we are moving forward. No, it's good. It's good. It's moving forward, and yeah, we've got good plans in place and the LTP for that as well, subject to it getting adopted this afternoon.
Mover and second. Mover and second. Thanks, Shuri. Those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Very much. Circulate around everyone just to. Start with Shuri.
I haven't got much to report. It's not. Okay, first I need to. And apart from that, think about the last, I think about 4 nights a week, roaming around and playing. People team time for, people team run and team runs.
Just the feedback relating to a long-term plan. Most people are aware of the fact that you can't go in step other than an hospital. And that, you know, this day is.
It's still not.
Is it kind of the rugby play?
I haven't done it.
Well, that's a very proactive step by the long-term plan with relations to consider those aspects.
Cherie, thanks for your work on the code.
Extremely well done, thank you. I think Cherie and Rachel. Thank you. Robin?
No, I've been doing a few things. There've been quite a lot of webinars recently about the Climate Change Commission's draft report from, so they did a series of webinars and the Ministry for Environment also done a series, so I've been attending those. And we had a really great business after 5 house and culture. It was lovely. It's nice to see a business doing so well in a subject that I love. And the other thing that I was really, sorry?
I was hospitalised, so during all of that.
Well, I've had that sort of excuse at least. And the other thing which I did, which I really enjoyed, was 2 weeks ago they had a citizenship ceremony, so welcoming all of the new citizens in the district as part of the ceremony, and it was really, as somebody who's been through that process themselves, the citizenship ceremony is quite moving. It was really, really lovely to see all these people coming into our community and becoming citizens and really having a chance to celebrate them in the stories. And yeah, it was a really moving experience, and I really encourage any elected members. We do, I think every 6 months or so, there is one of those ceremonies, so I really encourage you to come along and be a part of that.
Right, so reasonably busy last month. I attended the Thames-Coromandel meeting across in our emergency management. We had one person turn up. And I think 3 of us offered her a cup of tea. She was a bit overwhelmed because we had people from FENS and emergency management and all sorts of other people there. So there didn't seem to be a huge level of concern in the Thames district about sirens. I've attended a few meetings. Our greenhouse gas reduction working group has met, and we've renamed ourselves to Resilience and Sustainability Group. So we're hoping that can be a springboard to look at more than just greenhouse gas reduction. Attended a number of long-term plan meetings and workshops. The EV, electric vehicle event out in Power across the way, which they just seem to be getting more and more people attending. Thames-Coromandel meeting, business after 5, as Robin has talked about, and yes, that was quite good. Greg gave us quite a good history about bookshops and about houses, and it's the 2nd oldest bookshop in New Zealand, I think, and the other one's only like a year older. So, and Robin also went to the Tracks and Trails Forum up in Coromandel, and that had a number of groups from all around the peninsula that are doing everything from little trails up in forestry blocks through to walkways alongside roads. And one of the things someone mentioned was that if you draw a line west to east, there are no designated Great Walks north of that line. And it just sort of is an amazing opportunity to try to get some of these tracks and trails joined up, because with the peninsula being the way it is, it's ideal for people to hop onto a trail, walk along it, come down, stay somewhere overnight, go and do another bit. And yeah, it's just a really good opportunity. So that I just think it would be fantastic if Coromandel became a great walk in the future. Also, I had a Zoom meeting with PowerCo a couple of days ago. Your people have got the emails about how they want to increase some resilience to the peninsula as far as power supply goes, and they're trying to look outside the box as far as, well, we could just put more poles and wires and provide additional supply to the peninsula for the peak times, but they're trying to think outside the box, and the strategy that they've come up with is to spend $20 million on 3 diesel generators. Obviously, I have particularly strong thoughts about this. So we did talk it over, and they are.
That's why I referred it to you.
Yeah, they are currently looking at. They put out requests for proposals to a number of companies around the possibility of solar farm and battery backups, and we also talked about the one that's currently on the Matar. Yeah, they are still waiting to hear back from some of those companies. So I believe they are going to try to come and present here, and maybe at the next, either at a workshop or a community meeting. Yeah, but it felt quite good to talk to them too. That they've had a number of responses. Yeah, and around half the people who responded are concerned around the environmental and the sustainability of diesel generators. And the very last thing, the waste audit that was done recently, a huge percentage of the waste that's collected on the peninsula is considered organic. And I can just see this as being a really good opportunity for Thames to do some sort of a small scale trial. They're doing one in Nelson, picking up some organic waste around about 150 houses. And I think they're getting something like 5 tonnes a month from those. So yeah, I know we've got a group in the community that wants to get involved with that. So yeah, we can do whatever we can to try to get that happening. Obviously, we'd have to work through some details with Bruce and his waste team, but yeah, it just seems to be a really good opportunity to.
I agree. The report that said at the tip there was 63% or something organic. Yeah, and of that, 84% was food. 84% of the system.
And then the opportunity to incorporate what they call sanitary paper, which I think is cleanish paper and cardboard. When you include that as well, it's just, I hate the phrase, but it really looks like a no-brainer as far as reducing waste. Right, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks much. We're CalPO receptive to sustainability measures in terms of trying to make the power more reliable. You know, those big areas like were they receptive to this?
Yes, and I think it depends also on where where the supply is needed and where you can put the facilities, because the closer a facility is to where you're using the power, the better. Another thing I did mention to them was to try to, maybe they could work in some schools around solar panels on the schools' roofs, but not in schools and remote areas, become a bit of a community hub if there's, you know, whether a event or disaster event. Those schools have got solar and battery. That seems a natural fit. I also asked them about possible EV charging stations, and saying, well, that might help their case if they can say, as part of this project, we're going to make sure we've got additional supply in this area, so those charging stations would go to. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for getting involved with that. your input would be valuable to where you're going. Yeah, okay, so awesome things, Martin. Cheryl?
It's been very quiet lately, actually. Very few groups are having meetings. And if they are, they're at a national level and Zoom meetings, so it's not very relevant. I've been in touch with the Thames Museum. They seem to be going really well, very well. And I wandered down the Thames Market last Saturday. I like to just go down and catch up with people, and you know. But there was a meeting I attended in Whitianga on the 12th of June as a ratepayer. It was around the tsunami sirens.
Sure.
But there's things that I became aware of there that as a community board member I'm very concerned about, and it's probably not appropriate to discuss it here. So I'll be talking to Rose about them, some things that I think need require clarification. So yeah, I'll be doing that.
Because you've noted our response at this point. So.
I did, but you need to know the reasons why it was put to you.
Thank you.
If I could just highlight a couple of things in the report. Firstly, I'm getting a lot of feedback that people are really missing movies. And, you know, isn't like the library. You know, we provide a library facility for people, you know, should we really provide a movie thing? Because so many people are commenting about this is a significant lifestyle challenge for you know, it's
The library does actually have free movie Fridays. They do show movies. I think it's every month in the library to say. Well.
Secondly, is there any reason we can't get the clock fixed?
I think it's probably outfitted by a Thames-Coromandel consultant group that own the building there. So the cost of this particular would be worth.
I have a suggestion.
Check.
Roger coming Tuesday, and she knows all about it. Well, we could ask her.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, it's funny, just suddenly, you know, I had 3 people approach me and say, what? You go and look at it, and then it just looks like a sad town.
It's right. It's right twice a day. Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to refer to the Castle business after 5, because for me, I mean, Greg is a great presenter, and it was a lovely story about his business and the way it's developed. But he threw out a couple of challenges which I thought were really, and I hope people pick up on. One is the fact that they're going to be developing a huge mall at Drury, which, as he points out, is less than an hour's drive away, no traffic lights, motorway, open road all the way, and going to be heaps of parking. And what challenges that going to create for retail here at Thames, when people decide, hey, let's go to the mall to do something entertaining rather than downtown. So I thought that one. And the other thing which there is, well, it's just this comment about how retail in Thames is kind of disconnected area, or disconnected areas, and perhaps without giving any answers, he was thinking that perhaps that's something that council needs to think about, how to create the right sort of geographical environment for businesses to thrive here. I just thought they were very astute comments. So just wanted to comment on that. And the other matter was just, I put in here about the shoreline management plan, but in the last panel meeting, it was commented about, we've got something serious happening here, so nobody seems to be talking about it. And the panel, and looking at things that are happening in Thames and things that need to happen to mitigate, you know, it's significant stuff, and yet nobody seems to be talking about it much around town, about the whole threat of inundation and or the potential costs to mitigate the sort of situation. The media hasn't picked up on it or doesn't seem to have picked up on it. And that was just comment the price. So I think about that, well, yeah, it is probably something that would be worth people talking about a lot more. I think just don't understand. But anyway, that's the short answer. Sorry, I've got my question.
So at 1 o'clock today, there's a special council meeting to hopefully long long-term planning, which has been supported for many people. And I think the key for hearing how those once that's signed off, the community board absolutely understand the relevance to it for here, and us really know what's in this year, what's in next year, the forward thinking. So I think it's really with us spending time understanding it, because you sort of can take a deep breath and think, oh, that's done. But we'll know it, we're starting to look at next year's not long-term plan, annual plan. So I think we could all spend time understanding it. There's a new group started up for exactly for the sort of people that you were meeting at Citizenship. It's called Teams Fusion, and it's a group for women newly entered into the country or into this area, and then they gathering together. They're having a dinner tomorrow night, and I've been going to some of those things and enjoying them. I went to I call them the Christmas people. The Christmas Wonderland Incorporated Society had their AGM the other day, which I attended, and they are all on board this year in the Civic Centre and have started planning and bringing in some locals to help the main whānau that does a lot of that work. It feels, I note what you just said, Rose, that Hannah Rose is coming, but she won't be here then. To me, it's an ideal opportunity to maximise our kids in the Civic Centre with what they're doing. And so Martin thinks he's busy now, he's going to be busier at Christmas with lights and laser lights. He just doesn't know what's hidden yet. But I think we should play inverted commas in that area so that we give the town a really amazing Christmas.
And wonderful though.
And the other thing I know her personally, so I need to acknowledge that, Kate Wilson, who's a local person, she is part of the Magic franchise and does the events. And she approached me about potentially bringing a pre-season game here in January and having the women and perhaps even an Australian team, depending on our COVID situation, etc., to have games at Jack McLean or wherever, have them stay, do workshops with some of our young netballers and emerging talents, and was playing on our website with whether there was any potential for that. So I talked to Strat yesterday, and we sort of thought it was a good idea, and I just wanted to gauge interest here, and then of Kate on to Kirsten, so that they can work together. But it just felt like an opportunity of a major sport to come to town. So for our netball.
Well, I don't want to. Just right, okay, so wanting the, that next level of netball in rugby, even league, that come to this. We have some of those via.
So I think Thames is Kate's hometown, and so Kate, she's late 30, used to be head girl at Thames. She's just lives in Hamilton, and it's just, this is her hometown, and she thought of us, and she has seen the Jack McLean Centre and thinks it's fantastic, and wanted to, focus the involving her and with our people, and we'll go from there.
That's absolutely outstanding. Happen. I'll just make my report to be read. I'd like to acknowledge all the community board members for their input. It's just been amazing. I'd like to highlight some of that in terms of fairly your energy, in terms of association. It's been outstanding. Thank you. I appreciate it. It gives a lot of surety and respect and liability into the city. Martin, yes, thank you. You know, everyone really putting in some. It's just fantastic. Ralph, thank you for your direction. I'm on board. It's just fantastic that you are always bringing in, discussing things. No, I really appreciate it. It's just really awesome. Some of your reports that you presented to us have been standing, particularly one that we're going to deal with in workshops. Just brilliant written. I think it's great. So well done. In terms of my report, public forum actually mentioned it in terms of colleague Anna. It's absolutely outstanding. Bricks. I just made the note that shows that we are guardians of the land, sea, and sky, and it's our job to protect it for future generations. That's what it means. Highland work was celebration of the formation of Thames. It's prehistory and it's wildlife. And gee, what outstanding talent we have in our county for those things to happen. And I met up with Kylie just as she was starting that and trying to visualise what she was going to put there. You know, it'd be very hard to look at a wall like that and get the perspective and think to yourself, she's how am I going to do this? Well, it was all amazing. Really good. I mentioned the announcement. It would be good to have a complete briefing with the Thames community to update all the community board members, all the detail, the detail, and what might come out of the deliberations. We're all in with them. We know basics related to what's happening in the detail. So start, let's just try and structure it. So that would be appreciated. So that would be good. Thanks to Michael Dobie in particular, who always keeps me right in terms of my radio interviews on Thursday. Thank you. You know, you're just awesome there. That's a big thank you for today. County Care, I warmly thank Cherie, Robbie. I have a lobby for the time establishment out here, and that has been really well. That's fine, and it's really good. The process is good. Well. Mentioned that in future there, we follow up on Barry on Peter as well. And some knowledge going on there. So I just would like to follow up on that. So we Thames community board, I'll talk about that in the workshop. Beyond that, all good. Thank you.
Is it I asked perhaps schools what their I've seen this new board cover about community. It's sort of just there.
I've heard nothing but positive work and in kindness work, and I think that just
So if the still upset me.
It wasn't mentioned. Can I make another suggestion? Can Orion again should be able to give us another update and and we could talk about that. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Sure. We think those things.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just move to pretty second. You. All good. So we'll do for the things. Well, that depends. That depends. time. And we'll go to the shop after.